Oh yes, good morning. You are welcome to a fresh edition of our program. It's Summit, and my name is Banji Busari. Of course, you know the way we do it on this program. But before I go far, let me just tell you that Jumoke is on a special duty. She's not with me on this edition of the program, but not to worry, very shortly she's returning, at least by the next episode. Today on the program, we're actually reflecting on the just concluded World Press Freedom Day. Don't forget that May 3rd every year is actually dedicated to the celebration of World Press Freedom Day. Of course, United Nations came up with this about 3 decades ago on the need to appreciate the role of the press in good governance, and then while actually going about their duty, how much freedom do they actually enjoy? As in, while trying to provide free flow of information about governance, about activities in their various climes. How much freedom do they actually enjoy? So is there anything, or are there things that may conflict with their efforts to actually bring about free, unfettered flow of information to the people? You are welcome. My name is Banji Busari once again. My guest is here. Of course, you know we don't do it all alone. Somebody who is also a practitioner, a media practitioner, was deliberately chosen for this topic. And we actually want to tap into his experiences, particularly on press freedom. It's my joy and my pleasure to bring onto your screen this morning Mr. Ademola Adegoke, a media consultant, a media practitioner of over 3 decades. It's my pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you, Banji. Thank you for having me once again, and viewers at home, good morning.
Yes, it's our pleasure to have you. May 3rd, just a couple of days ago, was actually a day that was set aside to commemorate World Press Freedom Day. To start with, do you see the annual celebration of the World Press Freedom Day as a mere ritual, or you see it as an advancement of the cause of World Press Freedom Day?
Yes, I don't see it as a ritual because I see it as a constant reminder of the very, very crucial role that the press, as we call it, the fourth estate of the realm, the role it has to play in global growth and development. Because you cannot be talking of growth and development when people are denied the right, to information, the right to be well informed about whatever that is going on. And even when we talk about growth and development, growth and development is not done in isolation of the people. It is done, for the people, and the people for which growth and development is planned, they deserve the right to not only to be informed but to be carried along. And the platform to do this is no other one than the press. So when we celebrate World Press Freedom Day, we are only, reminding ourselves of that crucial role that the press has to play so that we don't forget at any moment in time.
All right, talking particularly about this year's theme, the theme says, a press for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. No imagery captures the situation from the ongoing war on Gaza. Specifically, the theme says a press for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. What's your own idea of this environmental crisis that has actually affected the role of the press?
You see, there are so many environmental crises, facing the world today, and the solution to which you cannot exclude the press when you are looking for the solution. Let's even, the technological advancement that the world is witnessing today is coming at a cost. You understand? And it is coming at a cost to the environment. You know, you have industrial pollution, you have, you know, even so many things, you know, having to do with the environment. And if you are looking for a solution to this, the press must be carried along, like I've said. You have, you know, population explosion leading to, you know, so much pressure on the facilities that we have. Flooding, for example, you understand, is an environmental issue, and the role that man plays in flooding, you know, so deforestation and all of that. You cannot be talking of this without the press, you know, because the people must be well enlightened. What steps are we going to take, you know, to check deforestation and all of that? So tree planting. So the press has a role, and there is nothing that you want to do that you want to exclude the media. If you do that, it will be at the peril of growth and development that, you know, we are, you know, driving at in our present world.
While the press is actually committed to bringing the truth for the purpose of good governance and the welfare of the citizens, this information comes at a very great cost. Now, professionalism
I mean, to the practitioners,
comes at a very great cost. Ensuring high-level professionalism is a very, very big task in the course of their work. Now, while trying to extract the truth, ensure that the truth gets to the public, it's, like I said, it comes at a very great cost. Some journalists have actually lost their lives. Some have been detained, some have been incarcerated, some have been abused. Now, before we actually go far, let's look at the case of Gaza. A lot of the Palestine-Gaza-Israeli war, a lot of journalists, in the course of their duties, have actually lost their lives. Now, how would the world be able to track events if journalists are actually hindered in the course of their work?
Well, the journalist, in fact, for me, the journalist is a humanitarian worker.
A humanitarian worker.
Yes, that's the way I say the journalist. Because he does his job even at great, you know, at the expense of his life sometimes. Like the case of Gaza you have talked about. Let's even come back home. Even our own Boko Haram, you know, that we are facing, our own insurgency in Nigeria, it's not as if it has not come at great cost to some, you know, media practitioners. You understand? Some have been attacked, and they must go and cover. Like the case of Gaza, we are talking. Let's now marry it with the theme for this year. You know, press for the planet.
The press for the planet. Yes.
Press for the planet. You see that war is a threat to humanity. War is a threat to world peace, and if people do not actually, if they are not informed about the evils inherent in war, they may not, you know, they may not really know enough. There may not be enough pressure to mount on state actors, not to resort to war. And so it is because the journalist is determined. For example, the Gaza example you talked about, you know, the war between Hamas and Israel. Look at, you know, serious environmental issues it has thrown up. And if the people, you can see now that, you know, all over Europe and America, the US, for example, in many states, in many cities of the US, there have been protests about, you know, the need to stop the war in Gaza. And it is because they are seeing the humanitarian crisis, you know, that
emanating from.
And did they go to Gaza? No, they didn't go to Gaza. Who brought, you know, the situation in Gaza to the knowledge of the people? It is the press. So that is the role. So that is why I've said that, well, the journalist is a humanitarian worker, and the world should see the journalist as such. You understand? Who does his job, even at the expense of his life, you know, sometimes. So, and this is why we must, you know, ensure, we must not only, ensure or work towards press freedom such that the journalist is free to practice, his trade. We must also, give adequate respect, and protection to the journalist while he carries on with his duties, to ensure that the people are well informed.
Coming back home, that's coming nearer our environment here in Nigeria. We've had the worst of times when it comes to press freedom, particularly during the military era. You are aware of what happened to the two journalists, the Guardian.
Tunde Thompson and what's the name now? Nduka Rabo.
Nduka Rabo. Both of them actually were victims of maybe press repression.
Press
muzzling, and they have very, very, very sad stories to tell. After that, a lot has happened to several journalists in the course of their duties, even right here in Nigeria. There was a perception that maybe the press freedom is usually more under threat under the military than under democracy. What's your view about the press freedom under these two separate, different types of arguments?
Well, we can say that in Nigeria, largely, there has been a higher level of press freedom than in the present civilian regime than we experienced under the military. But I must say that it is not yet Uhuru. It is not yet Uhuru. We are all aware of recent developments, especially as it has to do with the arrest of a journalist, the editor of First News.
That's Segun Olatunji. Okay.
And presently we still
That's just about a month ago.
A month ago. And to do with the director of military intelligence, the way the director of military intelligence carries on with his duties. And that story, even from Segun himself, was not an exclusive story. It was a story carried by so many other media platforms. So, but that was the allegation they threw at him when he was first
after his arrest.
After his arrest. But later, they had somewhere they were going. He was said to, they now went and said he published, that his Medium published a story against, a top government official. You understand? And
of the current
administration. And well, let us for me, any security agency will be acting within its operational purview to invite anyone for questioning. That is not the issue. It is the manner, the process, with which that is done, that is the issue. In the case of Segun Olatunji, if the Directorate of Military Intelligence had just invited him, what do you know about this? Write a statement and all of that. And then if they find anything incriminating against him, there is a laid-down procedure, to get him prosecuted. You understand? But when you now, resort to Gestapo style of picking in the street and then blindfolding him, taking him to your facility, and worse still, even denying that the guy was not with you. This becomes suspicious about the real intention of what they had wanted to do. So, and they were even, according to the chairman of IPI in Nigeria, he said they were, even when they were contacting the military or the DMI, they said they were denying. Even they also lied, according to the IPI chairman, that he was not with them.
That's International Press Institute.
Thank you. So they were lying, according to him. So this is something that we should worry about. This is especially happening under a civil regime. So it is something that we should worry about. I know that the president is a sworn pro-democracy activist. That is talking about even before he became president. And he also, you know, had the rough edge of the sword, you understand, from military rule, you know, as a pro-democracy activist. And I'm sure that I don't think he will, you know, want to subscribe to things like this. That is my own thinking. But, you know, we always, in every administration, we always have overzealous state officials who want to overreach themselves, you know, in the performance of their duties. And that is why we want to advise the president, you know, to be wary of such officials who may want, because whatever they do will tarnish the image of his government.
But before you actually go far on, maybe going to the extent of advising the current administration, that's leadership, I may just want us to kind of have an insight, kind of probe, so to speak, also. What is it that the military may actually be against in terms of their job? What is it that has been said about them that you think may be of threat to them, so much so that journalists will now become the attack? I'm aware of the wrongful bombardment, the one that happened in Kaduna, where innocent lives were lost. That's the airstrikes, where I mean, the press took the story, and a couple of others. But could that have constituted an offense, or what else do you think the military may actually be shielding from the people, from the public?
According to, if I may go back to Segun Olatunji, they actually, when he was interrogated, they actually swept the issue of the publication against the Director of Military Intelligence aside. They now went to the publication against a top government official
in the presidency.
In the presidency, and they now said they were asking for the source of his story. And you know that not even on the verge of death will a professional journalist reveal the source of his story, because it is unethical. You understand? No journalist will do that. You understand? Because you must protect the source of your story. And so Segun Olatunji was not ready to do that. You know, to tell them the source of his story. As a matter of fact, he said because they seized his phone and then they were able to, you know, pin the story down to one person, you know, from his phone when he was, and then they said, okay, apart from this person, who again? And the guy refused to. No journalist will do that. So because, you know, except these days that you have what you call citizen journalism, and even people that never had any training about journalism, we just, you know, pick up their phone and they write. But those of us who are trained journalists, who know, you know, the ethics of the profession, no journalist will reveal the source of his story. And that is what the military, you know, people were asking Segun Olatunji to do. And, you know, as a professional journalist, he wouldn't do that.
Within the 14 days that he was in the custody of the DMI, he said his life was close to death.
Of course.
What if the worst had happened?
You see, and that is what worries me. That is what actually worries me. In fact, you know, what actually worries me, you know, for me, is the real intention of the military people against Segun Olatunji. Was it just to interrogate him, you know, find out if there was any form of culpability or criminal intention or whatever could be established against him? If that was their intention, I don't have any issue, you know, because if truly maybe he had done anything untoward in the performance of his duties, you know, they could, I mean, there is a process. You can charge him to court, you can prosecute him. But my worry was that they were denying that he was with them.
So if he had died at that point, nobody would have actually claimed responsibility.
That is my own worry.
So that's so much about Segun Olatunji. Let's talk about the recent one that was Ojukwu. That was also allegedly picked up. That has not, we have not seen, it's still unfolding. We haven't seen the true picture of why it was actually picked up and what his situation is. But what we can actually conclude is that it is becoming almost a common experience now. And we do not know who next, who is going to fall victim of the military incarceration in the course of duty. So what, for our journalists, what does that portend for journalism and the country as we speak?
You know, I had advised the president, you understand, the other time, and you said before we came to that, there is no way we will still not bring in the president here, you know, and state. And anyway, let me veer off this question to also commend the role played by the current Minister of Information, even in the release of Segun Olatunji. That means that, you know, what that indicates is that it may not, what is happening may not have, you know, had the endorsement of the entire presidency, you understand, or the administration. Like I've said, you will always have, you know, overzealous state officials who want to overreach themselves. And that is why we now have to, you know, call on the president to please, you know, be very careful about people who, through acts like this, through behaviors like this, we want to tarnish the image of the administration. So, in the case of Daniel Ojukwu, I expect that. And again, we have to also know that, you know, that the Constitution says that no, you know, citizen should be, there is a time limit, you know, for which a citizen should be detained before it's charged to court. And if you are going to detain a citizen more than that, it has to be, you know, with the consent of a court of a court of law that will say, okay, now you must take him to court to say, we have not finished our investigation. For this reason, please grant us the permission to detain him longer than necessary. I expect that, you know, whatever he has done, within 48 hours, he should be charged to court. If he's not charged to court, then they should also, if they still want to detain him, they should first take him to court and then seek the permission of the court. This we are not seeing, and this is,
of course, that may not have happened because the process by which he was even picked up.
Yes.
And he actually said for weeks he had been monitored. That he had been under the surveillance of the military, monitoring his police, monitoring his activities and movements, so much so that they even knew the house and the wife's shop, and it was the wife that was actually arrested and taken home. It was the wife that actually led.
That was Segun Olatunji.
That's Segun Olatunji. I'm talking about Segun Olatunji now. Okay. That for weeks he had been under the surveillance of the military before he was eventually picked up. So an average journalist who has had that information, would that not actually be a kind of worry to such people? To be able to exercise their duties professionally.
Of course.
Would you be surprised if journalists become complicit now and they compromise their ethics because they do not want to face the wrath of the so-called powerful people?
You see, yes, there is no way things like this will not
impact.
Impact on, there is no way it will be a source of worry, a threat to, unfettered practice of the journalism profession. There is no way it will not affect, because even if you say you want to carry on with your duties, unhindered, you have family members, you have children, you have a wife who will say, please, soft pedal on this. So you
cannot go and die for the nation.
You cannot go and die. So this can negatively impact on the practice of journalism in the country. But the best we can do is also to appeal to our colleagues to say, in the face of all of this, we still have to carry out our job. We still have to do our job, because the job we do It's not for anybody. It's for the people. It's for the advancement of, the country. And we are all stakeholders in the Project Nigeria. In Project Nigeria, we are all stakeholders. And no one is more Nigerian than the other. No one is more Nigerian. That has to be realized. And like I usually say, we cannot all be in uniform. Some people must be journalists, some people must be doctors, some people must practice some other professions. And this is what we expect our security agencies to realize, to accord everyone, their due respect. That is what we expect.
As we coast home, I just want you to have a word for the journalism organizations, for the groups like IPI, like NUJ, and then Nigerian Guild of Editors and all of that. What more should we see in the coming days and months and years so that the press freedom can be much more guaranteed, even under this administration?
I must commend the efforts, put up by those bodies, IPI, NUJ, Nigerian Guild of Editors, but for their effort, only God knows what will have happened to someone like Segun Olatunji. So as we, new challenges, we also throw up new strategies. And that is what I'm going to tell, our professional bodies, that as we are having more of these challenges, we also must become, more strategic in our, more methodical in our approach to ensure that the profession that we have chosen, is not trampled upon, and we are not deterred from carrying out our duties the way we should.
I do not think anybody can say it better than the way you have put it, that irrespective of the daunting challenges in the course of our duties as journalists, we must remain unshaken, committed to our cause, that's delivering unfettered information, free flow of information towards good governance of our various communities. That's what we swore to actually do. And irrespective of whatever challenges, we must be committed to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Banji, once again.
I cannot thank you enough for the well thought out, very, very thought out submissions you have made on this edition of the program.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's Mr. Demola Adegoke, media consultant and our friend on the program. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks so much.